the Shrimple, an undergravel filter out of 3 pieces of plastic piping. Unfortunately, I have some bad news. Hey guys, so a bit of a different one for me this week. I was sat down here last night and I was thinking, I never really do any update videos of the fish tanks, and I've got some pretty cool things in the pipeline at the moment, including some sneaky peeks over here, which we'll get to in a bit. And I just thought, I'm not very good at showing you the process behind the scenes. I kind of like to bring things to you when they're like finished products, and really and truly, if I was to always do that, I'd never be telling an authentic story, because obviously this entire hobby is about learning and transitioning through projects and, you know, making some mistakes along the way. So this week I thought I'd just do a quick update, share a few kind of tank updates with you, and give you a little bit of a sneaky peek at some awesome projects that I think are pretty cool. But first up, unfortunately I have some bad news. So unfortunately, Bertie, my awesome betta fish, passed away. He lived in this tank for quite some time, and it wasn't even that long ago that I rescaped it into this awesome tank that it is today. And unfortunately, he jumped out the top of the tank and I found him on the floor a couple of days ago. And I never really thought that I would feel like this about losing a fish, but there's something about betta fish. I'm sure anybody that's owned a betta fish will know that they're just such an engaging fish. And every morning I would feed him and he would come to the front of the tank and we'd just have a little moment together, and it was just really sweet. And yeah, I never really felt like I would feel like this about a fish. I've had a few fish die in my time, and although it's always, you know, a bit upsetting, there's just something different about Bertie. And I know that there's going to be some people that say, well, should have had a lid on this tank, and I guess you're right, really. I can't deny that, but unfortunately I didn't, and also it hadn't happened until this point, and I think I just got a bit complacent because he's never shown any signs of wanting to jump, and yeah, so I didn't have a lid on, and he did in fact one day decide to jump. So I guess I'm gonna have to chalk it up to misadventure, but it's still really, really sad. I've checked the water parameters in this tank and there's nothing wrong. So yeah, it's just a case of have to just move on. And this tank is working really well since I rescaped it and redid the filter on it. So it's got a air-driven under gravel and sponge filter on it. So this is the outtake of the pipe work that goes down behind the rock there, underneath the gravel, comes to about 1 inch from my finger there at a diagonal like that, and then goes back at another diagonal like that, and then comes out again in this corner where there's a heater and a sponge, and it works really well. It's cycled in no time at all, and it's creating plenty of flow for when the CO2 is on. It's not actually on right now, the CO2 has gone off about half an hour ago, but when the CO2 is on, there's loads and loads of flow that comes out of the top of the outflow there and pushes the CO2 back down into the tank. And so we're getting some really nice plant growth. We've got a nice carpet of this New Zealand, testing me now, hydrophilia or something like that. Anyway, it's a carpet of something that has New Zealand in the word, in the name, and then lots and lots of nice crypts in the middle there, which are growing really nicely now as well. And it just looks really cool in there. I like the rock work. If I just lighten up the ISO a little bit, you can see the rock work. I think it's looking really cool. There is a little bit of algae in there, but nothing crazy. Everything's just looking really good. So yeah, I have to think what to do with this tank. Obviously just can't leave it empty forever, and it's going to constantly remind me of Bertie if I do. So there's got to be a plan, right? And here we have my IAPLC tank, which has currently got my pair of a Pistogramma trifasciata, a whole bunch of Chili rasbora, and a whole bunch of Pygmy corridoras, and even a couple of Ottocinclus, obviously. And here we are, the trifasciata male is coming out to greet us, looking really awesome and blue right now. Definitely trying on with the female, who I think's hiding down there in the grass somewhere, and she's definitely not interested at the present time. But yeah, this tank is looking pretty cool. I'm really happy with how it's turned out. It's kind of overgrown right now. You wouldn't even realise it was made of lava rock. But it certainly looks cool. I love it with the blue light behind. And yeah, just really, really happy with it. But as I was saying, with every bad thing, which in this case is losing Bertie, comes a bit of an opportunity. And I have been thinking for a while that it might be nice to change up the diverfish in this tank. So I'm thinking that these guys, these awesome chili rasboras, are going to have a new home and go and live up here in that tank. I honestly don't know if I've just massively improved in my netting skills or the chili rasbora are the easiest fish to catch ever, but that was not hard. And here they are, enjoying their new tank already, looking pretty chilled, don't look too stressed by their adventure at all. I think there's one or two that have gone to hide, because what can I get? 1, 2, 3, 4, I can count 5, so I think 3 have gone to hide somewhere. But they all seemed fine, and yeah, it'd be nice to now see them settle into this new tank and get... Oh, do you know what? I've just seen 2 more down here, so there must be 10 in total, I think, or I miscounted as I got them out. But anyway, I'll get them in a little bit. So there we go, 2 that escaped me. I'll get them in a second. But yeah, looking pretty cool. Happy with that. And it gives me something to look at in that tank now. So with the chili rasbora moved into the new tank, I now have to think about what's going to go in here to make this look more exciting again and keep those Trifasciata apistogramma happy and in breeding mode. So I think I'm going to go with some awesome looking long fin neon tetras that I saw in my local fish shop recently. They looked really cool and I'd never seen anything quite like them. I'll put a picture up on screen now. But if anyone's ever seen them or knows anything about them, then let me know if they're any good, because I'll probably go and get them in a couple of weeks' time now. And so if anyone's got any advice and thinks that they're maybe not something to go for, then let me know. But I'm intrigued to see exactly what they are, because I've never seen anything quite like it, and I don't know if they are like crossbred with something else. But yeah, they looked pretty cool, and I think will make this tank pop once again. Now the other exciting stocking news comes in this tank, what's currently being dubbed the Shrimple. I can't take credit for that, that came from someone on Discord. But yeah, this is my new moss temple for shrimp, I guess you might call it. And tomorrow I'm going to collect a whole load more shrimp to make this into an awesome Shrimple. Now you might be able to see that I've already got a couple of shrimp in here. There's an orange one there, and I think I just saw a cherry red at the back there, just wandering up in the back corner. But that's currently the only stocking in this tank, apart from a whole bunch of snails. Now the exciting thing about the Shrimple is not only that it's a temple made out of loads and loads of moss, as you can see, but that it's also constructed out of these plastic pipes, and is actually also a filter. So what I've done is I've constructed a whole bunch of these type of plastic pipes on their side, and actually here's my diagram to explain how many I needed and what width and length I needed to cut them all. But essentially there's that many 4cm pipes all stacked on top of each other. They gradually become shorter and shorter as you get to the top, and they're put on top of each other, and then down the middle at the back is a 2cm pipe that goes down through all of them, and at the very bottom layer on this level here there's a sideways 2cm pipe that goes like that through the middle of all of those, with holes drilled into the pipe, and essentially that is drawing water through the bottom layer of those 4cm pipes, which are filled to the brim with biological media, and so they can go through, the water can flow through the front and the back, and at the back it's raised up with the gravel to such an extent that it's virtually under gravel filtration at the back, and then kind of just drawing through the biological media at the front. So it's a really different and quite interesting style of filter, and essentially the entire Shrimple is just one massive filter. Now what you can't really see in its current state is the amount of detail that's actually gone into this Shrimple. There is in fact an awful lot of cerustone dotted throughout the construction. You can probably see a little bit of it at the top there. But essentially it's glued horizontally and vertically throughout the construction, and the aim was to kind of give it that kind of temple effect by seeing bits of what would look like a rock structure. Right now, however, the moss has grown so much in the last few weeks that you can't see any of that detail really. So I'm going to have to give this one really massive trim before the final shots for the video. But I'm not doing that anytime soon, because the final bit of the puzzle is to get this Monte Carlo down here to grow out and form a massive carpet on the front, so that this temple is rising out of a carpet of Monte Carlo, and I think that will look really, really awesome. But I don't want to do too much to the moss until such a time as we've got a nice carpet already made, because the moss has a tendency to go everywhere when you trim it. So for now, I'm just letting the moss do its thing, and I'm waiting for the Monte Carlo to grow out. And we're about 4 weeks in, and it hasn't really done too much yet, but I think it is just about to start. So I'm having some patience, and I'm hoping that I will be able to release this video in maybe 4 to 6 weeks time. Oh, also the only other inhabitants I have in here are a whole bunch of snails, and then these are my trusty assassin snails, which I bought online a few weeks ago, and are doing a great job of getting rid of all the nuisance snails. If you have nuisance snails, I would thoroughly recommend a couple of assassin snails. And finally, we have my COVID project. Now, unfortunately, I was struck down with COVID a couple of weeks ago, and I was isolating for almost 18 days in total. So my project during that time was this, and I'm pretty pleased with how it turned out. Now, as you can imagine, I wasn't blessed with loads of scaping supplies. I didn't plan to be isolating for 18 days, so I had to kind of make do with what I had. And what I'm most excited about with this project is that I've created a sort of really simple style of undergravel filter that is just made out of 3 pieces of plastic and is formed in a sort of S shape. And what's even more exciting is that I've managed to do it in such a way that you have a spray bar at the top, and it's working really well, as you can see, to force an awful lot of flow throughout this tank. So all I've done is, as you can see there, I've got a spray bar construction which is just drilled with slightly smaller holes at this end and slightly larger holes at that end, which is just to make sure that it's actually utilizing all of it, because I figured that the water would kind of go out of the first one if it was bigger on this side and smaller at that end, or they're all equal size. I wasn't sure that you get equal distribution of flow out of every single one, so I've drilled them consecutively larger. So this is the smallest hole, and that's the largest hole at the end, and you can see it's fairly evenly distributing out of all of the holes. So I think I've roughly achieved what I set out to there. And yeah, then it's just an S shape. So you've got that bar at the top, then an elbow, then a vertical bar down to the bottom, and then you've got another one that comes out at a slight angle and comes out to about an inch from my finger there underneath this dragonstone. So the whole filter is just on the left hand side and just cycling through the gravel here, which is Carib Sea Eco Complete, and it's just working amazingly. I was impressed with how quickly this tank cycled as well. It cycled in less than a week, and I didn't do anything particularly special to it in terms of water changes. So either the Carib Sea is just a remarkable product, or the undergravel filtration is just a remarkable design, or a combination of the two just turned out to be the best thing ever. But either way, I'm pretty pleased with the outcome, and also pretty pleased with the scape. This is planted out of S. repins, a whole bunch of the 4-leaf clover, which was growing really well in my African blackwater tank, some anubias that's just stuffed into the little holes of the dragonstone, and a couple of cuttings of bucephalandra, which also came out of my African cichlid tank. So pretty simple planting, and I might well put something else in the top corner there just to cover that little bit of filter. But then essentially it's pretty much there or thereabouts, ready to go for final shots and for me to make a video about. So it'll highly likely be that actually this tank beats this tank to getting a video made about it, because it's just pretty much there and looking pretty awesome. Now the plan is that both of these tanks will eventually go up here and be next to this new Chili Rasbora tank, with the new Dragonstone one being on the left there and the new Shrimple being on the right. So eventually we'll have a full rack again. And last but not least is my lovely African blackwater tank, which is home to the Nanochromis transvestis, which, if we're lucky, might come out whilst I'm talking, but that does seem unlikely. I'm really enjoying this tank, and I am personally really enjoying these fish, but it's definitely a fish keeper's tank and not an aquascaper's tank. You can sit here for hours, and it's kind of really rewarding when you do see them and you see their behaviour, and they're sort of, as I understand it, very natural in their behaviour, but they are just inherently quite a shy fish. And I'm starting to kind of think that they might be showing some signs of breeding behaviour, but certainly no indication that they've gone away and that there's any fry hiding behind there. It doesn't seem likely at the moment. The female hasn't coloured up in the way that I would expect, and yeah, I think it's kind of time will tell with that one. But nevertheless, I really enjoy this tank. I really wish when I was doing the shots of this for the actual video that I did, that I'd got some decent footage of the wood, because the bogwood has loads of really cool little caves inside it, and I think that's why the Nanochromis love this tank so much, because there's plenty of places for them to go and hide away beneath the tank, get stuck into the bottom there. They can kind of go behind here, and you can often see them. It's a terrible reflection there, but you can often see them behind here near the filter at the back. And yeah, it's just in general, it's definitely a tank that they enjoy, but maybe doesn't look as awesome to you guys back home. But I really enjoy it. The plants are grown out really nicely, lots of Anubias, and then this little carpet of 4-leaf clover, some of which I've used in my new Dragonstone tank. And yeah, it's just starting to look really cool. So yeah, I really like it. I appreciate that it's probably not the sort of wow factor tank of some of the other escapes that I've been working on, but it's enjoyable nonetheless, and it's here to stay because I'm really enjoying these fish and the challenge of breeding them. So if you want to see more about this tank, see the build and see how long it took before I ever saw the Nanochromis when I first put them in, spoiler alert, it was about 10 weeks, then you can click the top card and see my awesome scaping and tutorial video there. And if you're interested in what is now the Chili Rasbora tank with that undergravel sponge filter hybrid, then you can check out the bottom card. And I shall see you soon.